welcome back to Adobe Live. I'm Jack, UI UX designer, illustrator, animator, donut connoisseur most of all, and we'll be looking at pro tips in Illustrator today, utilizing the free transform tool, which happens to be, I think, one of my favorite tools, in a variety of ways. We'll look at on illustrations, text. It's a really easy way to manipulate flat shapes in perspective and build out mock-ups or just kind of like 3D looking kind of illustrations. So let me know in the chat if you're familiar with it and what you use the free transform tool if you use it in your work currently. So over here in Illustrator, I've got a number of artboards set up with some different examples. Let's, we're going to look at some packaging, we're going to look at some mock-ups if we have time. Obviously, I prepared entirely too much to go over, but we're going to try in 30 minutes. So I'm going to take a look at the tool first because it's a little bit unique in the way that it works. So if you go over here, it's going to be this little icon. This is free transform. It'll give you a hover when you hover over it. And if you click on it, it's going to give you a error on your cursor. You have to actually have something made on your artboard, an object or something to get started. Once you've got that, when you open that up, you're going to get this little like palette of tools. The icons, they're pretty self-explanatory. Each one of these is a different mode, and then the top up here is obviously to unconstrain and constrain your shapes as you're working with this. You can think of this as like a more advanced kind of like selection and transform tool. But the one thing I want to make you aware of is if you're anything like me and you move your screens all over the place as you're working, you might notice that your little palette here goes missing. This happens a lot. So if that happens, because it can get hidden behind things, there's a really easy way to fix it as long as you've got the free transform tool selected. If you hit F on your keyboard a couple times, you're going to go into full screen mode. And once you do that, if your tool is selected, you'll see the little panel here and you'll be able to move it kind of back where you want it. And then just hit F to go back out of that full screen mode again. So anyways, with that said, for a quick kind of breakdown of how the different options work, the first one's actually called the free transform. So the first option here is the free transform, and it skews. So you can kind of like grab the sides here vertically or horizontally to kind of skew your shape in perspective. The other options are going to be the perspective distort and the free distort. The perspective distort, it constrains the sides that you are pulling from. So if you're pulling the corners of your shape horizontally, it's going to pull out, your shape in perspective horizontally. You can see the bounding box kind of change. If you're dragging vertically, it's going to do the same thing, just vertically on either side, depending on which side you're grabbing from. The last option here, and I don't admittedly use this one very often, but it's the free distort, and you can really go wild. If you wanted to create some really extreme distorted objects, you could use that one. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of use cases. I've got some packaging here that I put together. You will be familiar with this from a past Adobe Live. This is our sushi brand, and I just put together a really simple die line here. This is like a sleeve box, like a drawer box that has an outside sleeve and an inner box that you can kind of pull out. So I'm going to grab just the artwork here. I'll just ungroup this. I've got the artwork kind of laid out. So this is how it would work. I'd kind of put together a die line of my package, and then I would use this technique to take a look at how everything's kind of lining up in my design. So if I didn't feel like, or I didn't need to kind of like make a whole Photoshop mockup for the client, I might use this technique to create a little 3D representation to check everything and just check the proportions of things. So I've got my artwork here. I'm just going to ungroup it. And to get started, I'm actually going to add a black stroke to this. It'll be easier for you to kind of see what's going on. It's because it's just on white, so it might be difficult to see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to pull these out. And I'm actually going to do both of the top and the bottom shapes simultaneously because it's going to be easier to keep them consistently skewed, if that makes sense. And also, hello to everybody in the chat. I don't want to miss saying hi. I'm just going to switch over to my tool, my free transform tool while I talk. And we're just going to kind of skew this and get this kind of like in perspective, essentially making a little box here. And hello Darren, good afternoon from Baltimore, welcome. Jeff Yaz, Shruffle, nice to see everybody. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions or, if you use this tool at all, because it's one of my favorites. Alright, so we've got the top and bottom, I just kind of aligned them, and a little trick that I like to use to make sure, and this is looking a little, it's looking a little squished. There we go. A little trick I like to use for lining up the scale of everything is I'm just going to grab, this is technically my back panel, this is the back of the box, but for our purposes at the moment, I'm just going to use it to line up the front. So I'm going to grab this and align it. I've got smart guides on and review smart guides. I'm aligning it with that bottom point, and I'm just going to bring this down until it snaps into place, and that's going to give me the distance I need between the top and the bottom to put together the sides. So now we're going to grab this. I'm going to just transform it until it lines up with the side of my box. And then I can do the same thing here for these guys. I'll just grab both sides, rotate them, and I'm going to again do both of these at the same time. So I'm going to copy and paste this one in front. So I have the back and the front of my box. We'll paste it in front of everything. And then I'm just going to, again, I'm going to line everything up here with those points. If I wanted to be super particular, I could actually use a line a key object, and then I'm just going to skew it into place. Just like that. And again, I'm using smart guides, so I can make sure that I get everything aligned to those points. Alright, there we go. And now I am going to grab, I'm going to hide this top piece for a sec. And let's make sure that we grab the back here. Move it over a little bit so I can select it and then just drag it into place. And like I said, this is really great for if you have something and you want to make sure that you check like the scale of things. So like, do I like the size of the logo when I see it like in perspective on the box mock-up, and do I like the placement of the pattern? Do I need to make some adjustments to it? Let me kind of make the front and the back here really quickly. I'm just going to copy this whole thing. We're going to make this the kind of like coral color for the pull-out box, and then for this I'm just going to go in here and I can literally just flip this around. So now we're kind of looking at a box that's, you know, this is the back of the box, this is the front of the box. We can get rid of this. If you wanted to take this further, you totally could, like add, you know, a gradient to this or something. So that you can get a better, you know, idea of what it's going to look like. You can kind of lighten this. Give it like a little bit of lighting so you don't lose that edge. You could make a full mock-up out of this. Like I said, what I like to do with this is actually use it to check like my pattern positioning. So you can see here on this box, I want to move that pattern up a little bit so that, you know, it's not getting cut off. And I'll actually grab, from here, I'll grab the pattern here and I'll grab it on my die line that I have, and I'm just going to go and I'm going to say, let's see, we need to move it up a little bit. So we're going to go here, actually move it down. So we're going to go Object, Transform, I'm going to use Move, and I'm going to uncheck objects and just move my pattern. We'll set this back down to 0, and then I'm just going to bump it a little bit. Okay, and let's go take a look. It looks like I need to bump it a little more. We'll do a move. Oh yeah, that's actually perfect. And now you can see that it lines up. Well, I might need to adjust it a little bit more. Maybe bring it down one more. So there you go. That's a really quick way to put together a little box mock-up. I'm going to skip the business cards for now because I want to get to the more fun stuff. But we can come back to the business cards. I want to make sure we cover kind of like the basics of everything. So let's jump right from the basics straight into the more complex stuff. This is I think one of the coolest ways to use this technique personally. And that is to create these like more organic shapes. Like, you know, you get the, you understand how we can use it to make geometric things. How can we use it to make organic things in perspective? So I have created these little library of plants. You've probably seen them before on a couple streams. And when I did this, I just made these leaves in flat on perspective. Most of the times that you're going to be using this tool, you're going to be drawing it in like a flat front view or a flat side view or something like that, that you're going to be drawing in that perspective. You can see down here I've got a little building that's just completely drawn in the front face. So we're going to build a plant just using literally a couple leaves and a pot. So we have this little pot illustration, and this is what we're going to kind of aim for. I don't know if we're going to get there, but we're going to try. And I'm going to grab my Monstera leaves here. And Val says, I love these elements, Jack. Oh my god. Oh, thank you. Yes, they're so fun. So And like once you have this library of stuff, you can literally make endless variations. It's great. So we've got our leaves, and I'm gonna grab the pen tool, making sure I've got like this lighter green, and I've got a stroke. And how I like to do this is I like to just kind of like think of this part as the structure. So we're gonna make our our stems for our plant. And it doesn't, you don't need to be picky, you know. You can look at a reference of a Monstera if you want to, or you can just kind of, the idea here is I want to make this balanced on both sides, the branches, but not symmetrical. So I don't want it to feel like I literally copy and pasted both sides, but you know, as I'm doing this, I want to make sure that like the left and the right side, like no one side feels too heavy, or that it feels like, you know, it's, you know, too symmetrical on either side. So we'll just kind of add some little branches down here. I don't need to go, you know, we don't need to go crazy with it. I'm gonna add a couple. I'm gonna do one like this. It's kind of cool, right? All right, that looks good. We don't need to, we're gonna just add a couple here because our leaves are gonna kind of cover stuff up. And then I'm gonna grab my pot here and I'm gonna just put it in front. All right, now with my leaves, this is where the fun part comes in. I'm gonna copy and paste, and we're gonna combine the envelope distort, or the warp. We're actually gonna use a warp that is an envelope distort, a type of envelope distort, and the free transform. So copying and pasting, let's just kind of start with our leaf up here. And this is where the perspective distort is gonna come into play. So I'm gonna grab my first free transform, and we can kind of like move it, right? Give it a little bit of an angle, and then we can widen the top part here and you know, shrink the bottom part to give it a little bit of foreshortening. And then you're like, okay, that's looking pretty good, but it doesn't have the natural flow. So that's how we add the flow, and we're going to add it with our envelope distort. So we're going to go to Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Warp. And generally, I use the arc for this. You can use the other options here. You could use, I feel like the flag would be another good one. You know, you could play around with these and see what kind of works for the specific types of leaves or the types of illustration that you're doing. But I like to use the arc here. You've got a horizontal and a vertical bend, so if you wanted to bend the leaf, you know, vertically, so it kind of like, you know, which I think probably works for what we have here, or horizontally. The option down here, distortion, is similar to the perspective distort on our free transform, in that if we alter this, you're going to see the horizontal sides are going to get larger or smaller, depending on, you know, if that number is increased or decreased in the negative values. The same with vertical. We're going to make that larger or smaller. So you could actually adjust the perspective a little bit using the warp as well, if you wanted to. So there we go. I'm just going to go real quickly, and I'm going to add a bunch of leaves in a similar kind of fashion here. So we're going to go over here. Let's do a really extreme one, like it's almost a side view, right? Pull it down a little bit. Actually, we'll go this way. Kind of liking the way that looks. And then we'll go to Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Warp. And let's go the other way, kind of like curve out. And let's go ahead and use that to give a little bit of a perspective distort to this. Okay, there's another leaf for us. And the great thing about this is that, like, there's no, with, like, leaves, I don't know if you've ever, like, leaves can get, like, pretty wild, you know? They don't have to be, like, super perfect and recognizable. The idea here is that you're just kind of using the tools to add variation, so it doesn't look like the same copy and paste leaf over and over again. I'm gonna go with a horizontal one for this. I'm gonna pull down the, you can also edit this after the fact. So let's say we kind of put this together and we're like, well, I want to curve this a little bit more. Up in the control bar, you can also adjust the bend up here as well if you wanted to. So we could type in like 20 or something like that to get it curved and bring it to the front. And yes, Brad is saying you can also make your own envelope and use your own envelope distort and warp. Yeah, you can make your own shape and then apply an envelope distort to it. That's really helpful for, like, if you have something that you want to fit to a specific shape, like text, for example. I see a lot of people do that with, like, the text, to get, like, a text in the shape of a circle or something like that. But I honestly prefer this method for this in particular, just because Oh, you know what? We're not doing any of this. Here we go. Now we're really getting into it. I should have been doing it skewing it in both directions. Just because it's a little bit easier for me to adjust quickly. If I were to make a custom envelope distort for all of this, it would probably take me a really long time to do this. And I want to move quickly to get these kind of laid out, right? All right, now I'm gonna cheat. I'm just gonna copy this. And this, I guess it's not cheating. This is also a valid way of kind of working. You can copy an already envelope distorted object as well if you wanted to, and just kind of adjust it to make some new leaves. And then once you get a good amount of these, we're actually gonna like duplicate. Let's just copy a couple of these. I don't want to spend too long on kind of laying these out. We'll be able to make a copy and add some to the back using Recolor. We're gonna use Recolor art. There we go. Actually, I kind of like it like that. Reflect to kind of darken it. So you can see, like, if you weren't looking like, super close at these, you probably wouldn't even know that they were the same plant, right? One more. Make with warp. All right, there we go. Hi, Michelle, welcome. There we go. I like the shape of that one. Sometimes you get little happy accidents and you're like, oh, that looks really cool, actually. And then I'm gonna grab maybe like one or two more. I keep saying I'm gonna move on to the next thing, and then I'm like, I want to draw more plants. Just let me draw plants. I don't know if anybody else feels the same. I'll just throw that one up there. Okay, so now we've got a bunch of, kind of wonky looking leaves. I'm gonna select this whole group and just show you really quickly how you can add something to the background. So I'm gonna make a group, copy, and then I'm gonna paste in back of everything. Isolate that group. For now, I'm just gonna reflect it. Okay, and now we're just gonna move things around. We're just gonna kind of. I might not actually even use all of these, leaves. We might actually not end up using all of them, but we have the option there, right? Let's get rid of this one. Let's get rid of this one. Let's maybe put this somewhere. All right. So now we've got some layers. I can select that group that I put behind and go to edit colors, recolor artwork. You can use generative recolor for this. The tool that I'm going to use basically here is down at the bottom. There's this option to adjust the saturation or adjust the brightness and hue. I'm going to pull this down, and that's just going to take my base color and darken everything. So I'm going to have give it a little bit of depth by pushing the copies that I made in the back to the back and bring the ones in the front to the front. And obviously also I've got like the stems that are also kind of overlapping and helping kind of emphasize that look. So that, like, we made that in like 5 minutes, you guys. We made this whole plant, and literally all we did was take these leaves and this pot and like put it all together, right? It's super easy just using that technique. And I'm sure you guys could do a better job if you spent a little bit more time on it. But I hear all the time about how plants are really hard for people to draw. They're not that difficult, trust me. Okay, so where should we go next? Should we look at building? Should we look at blend? Let's look at blends. Because this is another kind of technique that you can use with this. So down here, I've given you some kind of examples to get your mind thinking about how this works. We've got a couple of places where we've used the free transform with a blend, and this can be a really cool way to work with, like, it's very like with text or with shapes, where you want to kind of have like a movement across the design. So let's grab, I'll just give you a really quick example. I'm going to grab a rectangle here, and I'm going to grab this perspective, distort it a little bit, we'll squish it, and then if I take this, I copy and paste it, I move it down, and I just kind of whoop, right? I'm going to actually make this lighter so it'll be easier to see this effect. Grab both of these and go and make a blend and hit make. I'm going to adjust the blend steps down. And now you can see that we can kind of create this cool like accordion kind of effect across the design. So that's like another way that you can create these kind of like cool, I like to use this to make like grids for myself. So if you have like something that you want, like, let me give you another example here. So let's start with this. And this is going to be super quick. Scale this down, right? So we've got two shapes here. Object, blend, make, object, blend. I'm going to just decrease the amount of steps here. And this is something that you could also use with text. So I'm going to hit OK. Copy, paste, and then I'm going to take my perspective here, and I'm just going to pull it down. I'm going to make this darker, and I'm going to put it in back. And then we're going to pull it on in. Go into my blend here. I'm going to pull it on up. So now we've made like some shapes kind of in perspective, kind of like it would be a good starting point. What I'm trying to say is, like, if you were making like buildings or something like that, this is a good way to kind of start to get like a basis down for what you're creating, like a grid, if that makes sense. You could also use this with text. So if we had some text here, and I want to show text really quick because there's one sort of caveat with text, and that is that you can use the skew, so you can use the free transform in that way, but if you want to use a perspective distort, you're going to have to expand your text. So the perspective options aren't going to do that. So, did I sound, Val saying, don't you hate it when you actually accidentally sound like SpongeBob? It happens to me all the time. Did I sound like SpongeBob? I'm fine with that. Alright, we're going to create outlines, and so in order to use the perspective distort, you're going to want to create outlines. And again, you can do the same thing. We can copy this, we can pull it down, we can squish it until it disappears, and we can make a blend. So I'll make this like really light so you can see, select both of our objects, one of which has disappeared, and we're going to hit make. So, alright, back up here, let's see, buildings or business cards. Okay, let me show you the building real quick because it's a real fast example. I've got this front face of a building, and I want to put it in perspective. The client's like, we love your building, but we want to see it actually in 3D. You can just, this is so easy, super easy. Copy and paste, got my building, putting it in back. Let's say you want to keep the sides as is, or you want to keep part of the sides. You just kind of pull it over, and again, using the perspective, the free transform here, to kind of put it in place. And then you would obviously go back through here. You'd want to kind of edit these individually. You'd maybe want to get rid of the doors, and you'd want to go into like these shapes and like readjust them so that they actually line up with the sides. So we kind of go in here. We pull this over, right? You're gonna want to realign these. I'm doing this quickly, and then you can draw the shapes that you need for the top surface. The top surfaces with just the pen tool. So just go back in here, and you're just gonna follow your shapes. Bam, bam. This is very sloppy, but you'd want to make sure everything's kind of aligned. There we go. Copy and paste. Copy and paste, and use a little. There we go. Now we've got like a roof. All right, there we go. Oh, we almost made it. The other thing I wanted to show you, and we've got like a minute, is with business cards. So this is actually a way that I like to show business card mock-ups. I'll just real quickly add a gray background. This is fine. Purple's fine. And I like to use the free transform tool on this to make business card mock-ups. Business card mock-ups, you know, I think the fancy ones are nice, but sometimes, and I totally messed that up, sometimes they can be a little bit too fancy. Like, you know, the client just wants to see the card. They don't want to see a mock-up of like a cast shadow of a leaf over top, right? So you can use this to kind of make mock-ups, and then you'd add shadows in here over top. We're gonna run out of time. But you could also use this free transform to create your shadow, if you wanted to. There we go. Alright. We're almost there. We're almost there. Right? And then you can make like a cast shadow. Blur. Gaussian blur. Oop, I just accidentally. There you go! Purple! Yes, figure out the show toolbar, advanced. Yeah, that's, you might need to set it to the advanced tools, if you wanna, see the free transform, I think, from basic. So, I forgot to mention that. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the stream. I tried to get through as much as we could, as many techniques as I possibly could for the free transform, different use cases. It's a great way to add perspective when you don't need like the full perspective grid. Up next though, we've got more Tuesday graphic design live streams here on Adobe Live, so stay tuned either on YouTube or on Behance, and I will see everybody next time. Bye everyone!